Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I am a comic book artist, writer, creator, and I share my creative process here with you on the internet. If you'd like to support this channel and get tons of additional bonus content, bonus videos, read my comics online, you can go to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like to read more in-depth blog posts on my creative process for free, you can go to my newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my books, or if you like to read digitally on your Amazon Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. So let's get started. All right. So I have been working on the latest issue, the final issue of my comic book series Morningstar. And we've got the layouts up here on the screen for you. Let's see. So this particular page I've been working on has been quite a hassle for me. I've been spending a lot of time going back and forth, drawing and redrawing these pages. And actually, I haven't had a chance to post this. This will be posted on my Patreon next week, and it'll appear later on in my newsletter and social media. But this top panel here, where I've got one of the characters pushing, this is Uriel, he's the angel of death, and he's pushing Archangel Michael's face into the ground. By the way, for those who are new to my channel, the comic book is called Morningstar. It's Lucifer's Fall from Heaven told as a Western, hence all the biblical names. Let's see. By the way, I already see people popping up in the chat. I see Aleski's in the chat. How you doing? Thanks for stopping by there. Something that I was going to post, that I'm going to post in my my blog in the future, is here's a quick comparison of what I was doing before, where I was drawing that same layout and I just couldn't get the angle right. You know, just going off my thumbnails, it just looked wonky, the hand looked wonky. And so this just clearly shows the benefits of using photo reference. I've got a human-sized skull that I have, you know, plastic resin skull, it's not a real skull, but I've got that, so I just kind of put myself in a similar pose to the character, my hand pushing it kind of into the ground, and then based on really having the hand there as reference, and then just changing the angle, moving the skull around a little bit more, really I just needed it to get how the eyes were going to be revealed and the framing of the eyeballs with the fingers wrapping around it, and then got to the final image that you see on this page. And I've actually ended up using this process multiple times throughout this page. Yeah, there's multiple images that I've used for the punching here, the Uriel getting jabbed in the throat when Michael like kind of has had enough and he's getting him off of him. And now this final shot here where he's choking him out, even this one had to get some reference for. So let's see here. Amar's in the chat. How you doing, man? Thanks for stopping by. Ion Rocks as always. How you doing? We see August from Germany. Hello, welcome, guten Tag. Nice to have some international. Well, there's always a few people from around the world who show up, but thank you. Welcome to my channel. So I am drawing in Procreate, and I am working on digital layouts. And my process for this pretty much is I draw the layouts digitally. I print these out on Bristol board. I change the color to like a light photo blue, which I'm almost to that point anyway. So when I get there, I will show you my quick process for changing this to a light blue. Then I print them out on a 11 by 17 inch US size. I'm not sure what that is, what A size that is in European paper, but I will print that out on a standard comic sized paper, Bristol board, and then I will ink traditionally. So these layouts are probably the closest I get to drawing comic book pencils. And there's not much point in me, I've mentioned this plenty of times before, but there's not much point in me drawing particularly tight pencils because I'm not a particularly tight artist. Looking at my my finished artwork, it's fairly on the loose side. So as I'm looking at this torso, I feel like it just does not fit right. Like I should either be seeing more of the front of his torso and less of the side, or strongly making it more of a three-quarter view. And this is also a little bit weird because in laying out this page originally, I ended up drawing this this top panel a couple of different times. This version, roughing it out. And originally, if I turn this off, you can see very lightly there's the text as placeholders. So the way I originally was going to have it was having the word balloons all running across the top. But as I'm seeing the way that this fits, it just didn't give me the vertical sense that I wanted, having the page sort of at an angle and then having the character moving, having the characters tilted. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the dialogue over to the left hand side of the page and then have Uriel's dialogue running down the side. So there's going to be a little bit of moving this around a bit. See, Amar in the chat says, another easy way if you can't find or create photo reference is to use primitives to help when you can't figure out the pose or using a 3D tool. Very true, very true. I actually have some figures. Usually when I'm doing a pose, if it's a close-up pose, I'll use myself or that skeleton. And if it's something that's like a full-body figure pose, I have some of those little figures that I bought online. And I've got 2 male and 2 females because I have to do multi-figure compositions. Although it used to be that I would sit and take the time to compose both of the figures. If I have 2 figures like fighting or interacting, I would kind of compose both of them. But I found it's actually quicker and easier for me to just put one in the pose, snap a photo of it, and then look at the other pose, just repose and snap another one. That seems to be easier than trying to get the balance of getting both characters just right. Like, I think it feels a little bit more real, for lack of a better frame of reference, to have 2 characters interacting with each other. But just in terms of getting the pose down quick and dirty to speed up the process, sometimes it's easier just posing one character by himself in one pose and another one. So I've been doing that very frequently. So let's see here. I kind of want to adjust this arm here. I think that's the problem is I'm just seeing in comparison, I want to have his body exposed more. I think maybe, it's a tricky thing to work out. So I think maybe I need to just move Michael's head back a little bit, but the head is fitting perfectly where I want it. The arm is fitting perfectly, but it just comes out looking very squat in comparison. Bring this in a little bit more. Yeah, so I'm going to have to go in and, I end up re-lettering these layouts anyway because I don't draw the word balloons, the tails of the balloons when I'm doing my layouts because I end up moving them around so much anyway. It's kind of like, what's the point? But I'm going to end up moving all of these balloons around. And I'm probably going to end up moving Michael down a little bit. Well, moving both of these characters down. Let's zoom this in a little bit. I've been thinking about moving to a different brush in Procreate because I like this pencil, but when I'm doing finer, more detailed things like drawing faces, sometimes it's a little grainier than I'd like. And I like the fact that it kind of looks and feels a bit like a traditional pencil. But the problem with moving to a finer, tighter, more pen-like pencil for my layouts is that I start really drawing it like I'm inking it. And then it's like, well, at that point I might as well just ink it digitally as well. And I've mentioned this in previous videos, but I think my next comic I am going to do the entire thing digitally. I just want to finish off Morningstar doing traditional pencils and inks because I've spent so much time doing it, and it's the last issue in the series. Might as well finish it off the way I started it. And again, moving to digital inks, it's not one of those things where I'm like, I'm going to move to digital inks and then never draw traditional comic pages again. For a lot of stuff, I just like to try it for a while and see how it feels. I may try it and like it. I may try it and hate it. I may try it and say it works better and it's faster, but I miss the feeling of traditional ink. I'm also going to be spending a lot more time, or at least my plan is to spend a lot more time doing illustration work besides just drawing comics. Because that is one of the things I am realizing is just as much as I love doing the comic book stage, it takes me so long to produce a finished piece of work that I'm tempted to do a little bit more of just standalone illustrations so I can sell as prints and original paintings, because the time for me to finish those and have a new piece of work to sell is much quicker. I mean, comics will be the thing that I do for the love of it. Because I do love the medium of comics quite a bit. On an unrelated note, maybe later today and possibly throughout the week, I might do a bunch of random live streams where I just hop on for maybe a half hour, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. And the reason for that is because I've been wanting for a long time to start having some of my friends join us in on these live streams. And I kind of want to work out the bugs and the kinks for using a StreamYard to have guests on while I'm drawing. And so I think that I may just, what my thoughts are, well, just put them on and just have people on for a little bit and see how it goes. It's kind of how I am with most things, is just try it and see if it works out all right. Which means me just popping on and doing a live stream that isn't going to be like a full hour or a normal sit down like this. It may just be I'm on for a few minutes, maybe a friend pops in, says hi, sketch for a little bit, and then end. So, and it's really more just to test out what the kinks are with this thing, whether I have problems with audio or different settings with having people in, or if I do have friends joining me, if I need to give them a heads up about what they should or shouldn't do, or things to make it easier for them to be on the broadcast. So I'm trying to do this without enlarging the character too much. deselect. All right, I'm not going to be able to see the chat for a minute, but that's because I actually need to go over on my phone and grab some of the photo reference that I have on my phone and send it over here to the iPad, because I want to be able to see these while I'm working. They're still kind of being a pain in the butt. There we go. I'm trying to see. I think this is the one that I've been using the most. Let's bring that into Procreate. Then while we're at it, this one to Procreate. And that one. So normally when I'm working, I take these quick photos on my phone, and then I just have my phone available for me to look at while I'm drawing. But because I've got the phone to view the chat, I need to pull these in. Let's see here. Mainly this one. Let's copy. Paste. And let's scale this down so it's not in the way. And I don't know if you can see it that well. Actually, hang on, let me undo that resizing. But behind the figure, over his shoulder, you can see I actually kind of held the figure in front of my thumbnail. So there's a big sheet of thumbnails that are sitting above, a stack of thumbnails sitting above my iPad. While I'm drawing, I can just see and kind of put the character in a pose similar to that when I snap my reference photo. And so that's just a little thing that I found, it kind of gives me more of an easy way to kind of gauge how I want to pose them. So now let me scale this down a little bit so it's out of the way and I can continue drawing. So Amar says, the biggest thing to address for doing interviews is the format. The connection should be Ethernet. They need a decent mic. The last thing is a decent HD cam if they're showing their face, all for $300. Yep, those are all good things. I know even for my mic setup, I've tried a few different things. And apparently, people have mentioned to me before, but I can't seem to stop it, is that my mouth seems to make a bit of a lip smacking sound when I'm speaking. But I watched a couple of videos, and first off, I need to take a sip of water because I feel my mouth getting a little dry, and that's one of the things they talk about. So I do have an HD cam that's actually a little bit better quality than the one that you're viewing me through. But I've been using that when I have my traditional drawing above my my drawing table. But maybe I need to switch that up. So I've got this camera. The mic on this cam is the best mic I have found so far. I've bought separate USB mics. I have not invested in a Blue Yeti mic, which is what a lot of podcasters use. but it's better than the mic on my iPhone. It's better than my mic on my built-in desktop computer. I've found that it gives me the least amount of, it gives me the best audio quality without picking up any extra sounds. So I've been pretty happy with that. So I've just been using this webcam mainly for the mic, but maybe I'll switch up. So I've got this webcam running for the mic and just the audio, and then have my second, the HD cam, when I'm not recording me drawing traditionally, have that recording here on the table. So I don't know. It's a mix. It all, in fact, Amar, if you've got any good recommendations for a mic, please toss those in the chat. I'll consider, I'll definitely consider that. Actually, you know what? Send me your recommendation for what webcam you're using, because, like I said, I enjoy the HD cam that I have right now, and I went to buy a second one, and they don't make that camera anymore. So if I'm going to be running two HD cams, one for my face and then one for above my drawing board, I want to find another one that's reasonably priced. So I'm definitely open to recommendations. All right, let me keep drawing, because I'm just going to sit here jibber-jabbering. I just continue to not be happy with... I'm really happy with Uriel's body on this, but Michael's body, because I have it at this very twisted angle, and the thing I realize is that if I draw it at this angle, I'm just not happy with... I'm just not... Well, what happens if I draw it in the same angle I've got this photo at, then Michael's body is almost completely covered by Uriel's body. If you can see, they're just at an angle. I think it's weird, because for as much as I've got that reference photo, and I've drawn this like a bunch of different poses, a bunch of different times, I think I am going to duplicate this layer and erase this body and draw it one more time. So I've already drawn this 3 different times. I'm doing it a 4th time. And I'm sure at this point it's starting to seem like OCD to you guys. I mean, you haven't been sitting here watching me draw it that long, but again, just seeing how much I'm fussing with this one pose. But I feel like that's kind of... If I'm not working for a major publisher and I'm taking the time to do my own work and it's just me, I'm the person that I have to satisfy. Hang on. For some reason, let me undo that. As a matter of fact, let me deselect altogether. For some reason, when I try to erase, do the 3-fingered clearing an area, I don't seem to be able to do the gesture with my left hand. I can only do it with my right. But let's see here. Oh, also some more comments in the chat. Amar says, I have a Yeti, but once I get more traffic and start doing custom videos, I'll be upgrading. I was very much considering getting a Yeti, like ordering one this week. But I talked to another friend of mine, and he said that he wasn't sure if it was what it was about his recording setup. He was getting a lot of hiss and a lot of room noise, which right now, I'm sure there's a slight echo because I've listened to the audio of these. Every once in a while when I go back and I'm checking something on a video or referencing it, I'll listen. And I can hear that there's room echo. But so far, I've been pretty happy with the audio quality here. Uel's in the chat. He also says, I think it's mic pop, not lip smack, the audio thing. And Amar says, I use a Logitech C920 HD cam, but I've had that almost 4 years. And my buddy Jesse is in the chat. Zeus Tova says, you got a cold or something? I do have a bit of a hoarseness. I had a cold, a bad cough for several months, which you guys had to suffer through listening to me hacking and coughing for months. My doctor prescribed an inhaler for it and some antibiotics, and I've kind of knocked it back. But the inhaler just I have to rinse my mouth out afterwards, and it's affecting my throat a little bit. So it's making my lungs better, but my voice is a little bit raspier, and that's probably going to be for the next month or two. But anyway, hey, thanks for popping in, Jesse. As a matter of fact, Jess, you were one of the people I was gonna hit up when I start doing my random tests for StreamYard. So I'm gonna start trying to have people sitting in while we're doing drawing. So if this sometime this week you'd be up for hopping in while we're on the stream working, then let's do that. In fact, Amar, you too. I mean, we've talked about it. You're already broadcasting. It'd be kind of nice to have a have a shared live stream if you want to do that sometime. So what I'm probably gonna do is it's real hit and miss because I'm just taking care of stuff, family stuff at home. So I'm probably not gonna have it too pre-planned. It's more like if I'm gonna go online, I'll just send out an email and say anyone who wants to jump in and just include a link. And then if you're around while I'm doing it, great. If you're not, then maybe I'll catch you on the next one. And once I do get this settled and I work out the kinks of having people on with me while I'm live streaming, then I can probably start doing stuff more organized. So like Amar, if you're not able to get on when I'm doing tests, then we'll set up something one week where we're doing live stream, time that works for you. And we can hop on and work together. Same with you, Jesse. And our buddy Luber's in the chat. How you doing, man? Thanks for popping up. And Amar says he's open to it as well. Good. I'm glad to hear it. In fact, that's actually kind of the nice thing is when you've got multiple people who are all live streaming together. It's like we're all planning to want to get work done on our comics anyway. So it's just a matter of, when are people free? Let's hang out and draw. So I think what I'm going to do instead is I am going to try a pose that I did not shoot any reference for, but I'm going to change this and just have Michael's body dangling straight down. So you got a little bit of bending this way and then bending back. So this way, his body isn't being covered as much by Uriel's body, the larger character that's in front of him, strangling him. And see, it's interesting because sometimes you can do a ton of thumbnails and shoot photo reference and have all these things going for you to help you figure out what you want to be doing and how you want to be drawing. And then at the end, you still have to just look at it and be like, you know what? That doesn't feel right. And then, change it to what expresses what you're trying to express. So, let's see here. See some comments flying through in the chat. People are popping up here. Let's see. Amaris in the chat. She says, "How is everyone? I just woke up. Glad you're here. I hope you slept well." It's funny. One of the other things that I noticed when I was watching videos specifically about the mouth noises was that, and I can even hear myself doing it now that I'm aware of it. You guys, I don't know, maybe you do notice, maybe you don't. I hope that you don't, but now that I hear it, I can't unhear it. But one of the things they say is being able to really hydrate maybe 2 hours before. And a lot of times, what made me think of it is you saying you just woke up. Because a lot of times I have an alarm on my phone to wake me up a half hour before the live stream starts. Because the weekends are my only time to sleep in late. So I really do try to take advantage and stay in bed for as long as possible in the weekend mornings. So sometimes I will just be out and then I'm like, oh wait, the alarm is going off. I got to get up and go draw. So let's see here. Amaris also says pulled an all-nighter on a cosplay. I'm gonna get a bit too old to pull all-nighters, but I know that joy of just being so wrapped up in the creative process and flying through and enjoying it that you just like all of a sudden you look up and you're like, oh, the sun is rising. Crazy. So I know that feeling. I miss it. It's awesome. UL says, how is this battle scene playing out? So, I mean, because I've got my thumbnails in front of me, I can tell you, you guys are going to end up seeing it when I move to the next page anyway, so it's going to be a little bit of a spoiler. Michael is getting choked out, and he's kind of like, he doesn't want to have to kill Uriel. So that's the big problem. It's not that he can't fight back, it's that he really doesn't want to kill this guy. And another Archangel steps in and takes the choice out of his hands. And that's all I will tell you until I get to that next page. And this is also something that's going to be tricky to communicate in the writing, because it's kind of a subtle thing when you've got a character who is powerful enough to defeat the person they're fighting. First off, Uriel is the most physically imposing. Like, he's the largest of the Archangels. But Michael at this stage is sort of like imbued with an extra level of power, and he's just ready to go. You know, in the end, Lucifer is the strongest of all of them, which is why Michael's the one who has to go fight him. But at this point, it's trying to communicate the fact that he's fighting someone who, if he doesn't stop him, is powerful enough to kill him, but he doesn't want to kill this guy. You know, all of these guys have been his friends throughout this entire series. These are his brothers. They've been fighting side by side, and it's conveying that just that emotional conflict. So let's see here. I see Joseph in the chat. He says, first time here. Well, welcome. Thank you. I appreciate you joining us. Whether you're an artist, comic creator, writer, or just a fan of the arts, I hope you enjoy it here. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. And I mentioned this at the top of the video, but again, I'm working on, the comic book is Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, told as a Western. So it's a book called Morning Star. Amar says, let me get caught up on the chat. Oh, I already see it. There's a question here that Joseph has. I'll get to you. Let me catch up on the chat comments here. So Amar says, I can't wait for my fire cider to get ready. It has 2 to 5 more weeks to marinate. That sounds good. It's a nice thing. Have a little cider while you're social distancing and isolating. I have to make do with Angry Orchard. So let's see. Everyone's saying hello and welcoming Joseph. And he says, hey there, first time viewer, semi-pro artist, drawing portraits, currently writing my first ever comic book. Going to try to publish it on Amazon and draw it myself. Any advice? Well, I did do a YouTube video on first steps in self-publishing. And if you search through my channel for just self-publishing, that video should come up. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head what my major takeaways were. But, my major takeaways, I think, in that video were that it was simply a matter of getting a few books printed early on. If you're using Amazon's CreateSpace or Kindle Direct Print, that's what they replaced CreateSpace with. That's their print-on-demand service. And that's what I've been using for printing my books. I printed my individual comics with a couple of different printers. But I don't know how much of that original advice still applies, because originally my main way for distributing books was comic conventions. And right now, I am not sure what the comic convention scene is going to look like going forward, because even after quarantines are lifted and people are able to actually attend conventions, I'm not sure how safe I feel going to any conventions for the rest of this year. I may not start going to conventions again until 2020. And I think even then, a lot of people are concerned about a lot of this about there being a resurgence of the coronavirus. So, wow, I'm trying to think. I haven't really thought too much about it. At the moment, for me, what I'm doing personally is I'm actually kind of taking a step back and just worrying about finishing the actual book. And I guess continuing to make it available for people to read online and for people to order copies. That's a tough question. I haven't figured out what this is going to look like going forward. I just figured right now, if I think about that too much, I don't know what the steps are for how to completely rebuild the business part of getting your work out in front of people. Other than, again, a lot of publishing stuff on social media, posting works in progress online and pages online. You know what, guys in the chat, help me out. If you guys are doing self-publishing too, please, if you've got any tips, I would love to hear them. Right now, the comic book industry, I think, has really been turned upside down. Comic book retailers are mostly shut down, and a lot of people are out of work, so people don't necessarily even have the money to buy comics from their retailers right now. It's a really tough and strange time in the comic book industry. I think in the future, Kickstarters are going to become a lot more important to a lot of self-publishers. And I have yet to run a Kickstarter campaign. So there's lots of people that have much more expertise on that. Hang on, let me blow my nose real quick. I'm gonna just disappear from me for a moment. Let's see. Like Tyler James has a great podcast called Comic Launch, and he definitely does not believe that the coronavirus should be something that's stopping people from launching their Kickstarter campaigns, and he's talking about best practices to try and make those successful. There's another creator I follow, Russell Nolte. He's a writer. He publishes both comics and fictional prose novels, but Kickstarter and comic conventions have been his main platforms. He's run a lot of successful Kickstarters. I would definitely look them up online and look to them for advice on that, because I knew at some point that I was going to start dipping into to crowdfunding, but I didn't know when and how. I kind of figured, just the act of making the comic right now is taking up so much of my attention that I haven't had time to properly plan for the future. But that's a luxury that I have, in that my day job is fortunately continuing to go. It's continuing to allow me to work from home, and I'm not making the predominant amount of my living expenses from my comic book artwork. So I'm fortunate enough that I can just make work and then figure out how to sell it later on. So I think this is a hot button question for a lot of people right now. And I wish I had better answers for you. I think the advice that I would have given before all of this went down would have been very different. It just would have been, go to conventions, get your work in front of as many people as possible. Because a lot of times people will see your work for the first time, and it may not be until they've seen it. They may like the idea, but it may take exposing your work to them 5, 6, 7 times before they finally say, oh, this actually does sound like a cool idea. I think I want to spend money on it. It's one thing for someone to simply just say, hey, this sounds cool. It's another thing for someone to really say, oh, I want to spend money on this. And then once they spend money on it, they're like, oh, I like this. I want to come back and buy more of what you have. It takes a while to get to that point. So you just have to keep putting your work out there and trying to find people that are excited about the type of things that you want to do. All right, I really missed a bunch of comments. Let me roll back up through there while I was drawing and somewhat rambling a little bit. Let's see here. So you all also mentioned trying tea to refresh the mouth. I've heard tea recommended. I actually heard someone recommend eating an apple beforehand. There's something about the juices of an apple that kind of absorb a lot of the saliva when it's actually in your mouth to kind of help you make fewer of those mouth sounds. So I need to, I did try that right before starting. So hopefully that's helping a little bit. But again, it's baby steps. One of the main things I saw was there were people that were actually teaching themselves how to move their mouth differently. And it was a lot of it was improving your enunciation and opening your mouth more so that you're not getting so much of the open, close wetness that you make when your mouth opens and closes. And that's the thing, is really teaching myself how to speak differently, relearning how to talk when I'm on camera. And I'm aware of it now, but it's going to take me a while to learn how to train myself to do that. And the fact that my attention is split between learning all of that just to make my live stream sound better, when I'm worried about learning how to draw better, how to tell better stories, write better dialogue, composing better pages. There's all these other things that I'm equally, if not more so, concerned with than whether my mouth is smacking. So it's a lot. It's a lot. More in the chat. So Amar says it's supposed to be good for the immune system, so I'm trying it out. The tea. And I see Gaming Artist is in the chat. He says, "How are you? What else have you done on Morningstar?" So I'm on page 11 now, and I think when I was on last week, maybe I was on where was I? Let's go to the gallery. I think when I was working on last week's stream, I was on page 8. So yeah, if this looks familiar at all, this I think was the page I was working on last week. So yeah, I got a couple more pages done. And again, these are just the layouts. I still have to go through and ink the whole book. I mean, I have to go through and first re-letter it so that I can make the sketchbook version, then going through and inking it. So still quite a bit to do. Let's see here. Turn those layers back on. This, by the way, was what I was mentioning. This is normally how my pages look when I'm done with drawing. And then what I do is I will put on a layer that's filled with black, but I have it set on hue, so it just turns all the line art into grayscale. So that's just using a layer effect on a layer that's completely filled. If I go to this layer and I convert it from hue to multiply, or where's normal? Normal's right here. Then it's just a black layer. So let me go down to hue. And then I have a layer above that's set on vivid light because hue just doesn't make it as bright as I want it to. But this layer, let me move the artwork over to the side. This is basically just filled with a bright cyan blue. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see. Same thing I did with the black layer, except it's this light blue that's basically supposed to be the effect of kind of like a non-photo blue, and then what I did was just put one more layer of white above it to give me the effect of lowering the opacity, because I don't want the this blue to print too darkly on the board. When I say darkly, I mean I don't want it to print too opaquely. I want it to be kind of a low opacity knocked back, but if I lower the opacity on the blue layer, all it does is just make the black layer underneath show through. So I just put a layer of white above and just put it on like 70% opacity. So that, and this is what I would print out on Bristol board. So it's like a light blue that's printed for me to be able to ink directly on top of. So that's what I've been, that's where I left off that week. And then since then I have finished 2, 3, well, 1, 2, this would be the third page since then. So let me get caught up on the chat here. So let's see. So Jesse says, most of my sales through the year were Comixology, with Amazon so powerful, and I believe that's Comixology. Oh yeah, Comixology owned by Amazon. It's where I focused my sales. That's good advice right there. Getting stuff on Comixology, and I've been using Comixology every um, for every version that every issue I put out. I've also put on Comixology. Oddly enough, I do find that I think I sell a fair amount on Comixology and a fair amount on of Kindle. So it's kind of like both. And Joseph asks, publishing on KDP is basically risk-free. No need to invest money, if I understand it right. That is very correct. You can just have it'll give you an Amazon author page where it'll list your books, and you can just send people directly there to buy. I tend to use the actual print-on-demand service of that, and if you're someplace in Europe, I don't know if that's available to you or how much it costs for the shipping. But again, even with those options available, I sell the bulk of my work at comic book conventions, which I've been doing fewer and fewer of this year, just because I haven't been spending as much time actually drawing as I'd like. So I thought, let me just cut back on the conventions and focus on getting the rest of this series done. So let's see. Gaming Artist says, I have almost finished the second Naruto book, waiting for the third. That's cool. Happy to hear it. Getting a little pleasure reading in there. I have been reading some Kyle Baker books. Some friends ordered me for my birthday Kyle Baker's. There's one collection called "You Should Have Killed Me When You Had the Chance," which was it's a collection of just random cartoons he's drawn over the year. Maybe they've been printed other places, but this is the first time they've been collected in this format. And the other one is a new series he's doing called Benevolence, which is sort of like an alien action adventure series, with the humor that he's known for. So I enjoyed reading those. Let's see here. Amar says, I have at least another 2 years before I start that, in terms of the publishing. Says, I want to get my first 16 issues done. I want to get my first 16 issues done for my first comic universe. You know what? That is really, really smart. I started publishing work mainly because after I finished my first graphic novel, I realized it took me so long that I didn't want to just not publish anything for years on end. But I think if you're able to get, 16 issues done before you publish any of your work, then you'll have a good long, you'll have a long runway of work to release for your audience while you're making new stuff. I think that's a really, really smart way to go. I wish that I had the patience to do that. It probably would have been the smart move, is to just finish all of Morningstar and then put it out for sale. But I didn't. I was too impatient. But I think that's a very smart way to go. Let's see here. And Joseph says, unfortunately, I'm from Croatia. Europe, we don't have Comic Cons here. Yes, that's very challenging. If you're not able to travel, then it's very difficult to get your work out into people's hands. I do think that it might be reasonable to consider doing your book as a webcomic, maybe putting it on Webtoons or publishing it on your own website, and then having the print comic as something that people could sell. And if you want to sell digital comics through, say, Comixology, what you can do is a lot of the extras, like, for instance, all of these thumbnails that I'm showing you, I publish a sketchbook as a separate physical product. So people, even though I'm sharing the drawing process with you guys here online, I actually have a book where I publish all of the not all of the thumbnails, I publish all of the layouts. So you can see the raw version of this comic. And in addition to that, I include a lot of my thumbnails, bits and pieces of sketch as back matter in my comic books, in my comic book trades, the collected editions. You might want to consider, if you're going to sell single issues both physically and digitally with your comic, maybe you could actually include, if you have it as a webcomic, then it's just the comic itself, and people can read that for free. But if they want to see your thumbnails and your scripts, maybe you can include a collected single issue that you would sell digitally but it has a lot more content in it that people would be interested in. That might be a way to make the digital sold version as opposed to the free webcomic. That might be a way to create incentive for someone to say, oh, there's value in these digital comics. Because the digital downloads, you could probably sell those on Comixology for, say, 99 cents an issue. I think that's kind of a going rate for a lot of indie books. Somewhere between $1 and $2 per digital issue. If there's a lot of content that people would actually be interested in, that might make it worthwhile. So that's another thought there. I love how active the chat is. I'm sorry I'm so far behind in getting to the comments. Let me see. But, the nice thing is I'm drawing while I'm talking. So it's nice that I'm able to get through this, then scroll through and find a question, and then oh, wait, there's something more for me to start gabbing about. Let's see. Amar says, sounds like if there's a market, then someone needs to start doing them. In terms of there being comic conventions. Yeah, that's actually a very good point. Once this virus is under control, I mean, again, also, it's just a matter of, I don't know what the, if there's any kind of market for trade shows in Croatia. It might be there's a lot of people who want to create work, but there may not necessarily be people who are out, there might not necessarily be enough population that are actually looking to attend these events. So, I think that's the market that we're talking about, is if there's a market, not just for creators who want to get their work out there, but if there's a market for people who want to attend conventions, that might be something to look into. That might be a business opportunity. But, I mean, from everything I've heard, putting on a comic convention is so incredibly taxing and so challenging. The last thing I would do is just tell somebody, well, if there's no conventions, go make your own. I understand that putting on a convention is very difficult. It's hard to make them profitable, particularly in the first year, but, over a number of years, then it can become profitable. I don't even feel comfortable talking as an expert in this because I have spent zero time on the planning side of a comic convention. I've only heard conversations with other people that are comic book convention organizers and about a lot of the challenges and difficulties. But it's something to think about. Let's see here. Gaming Artist says, I'm drawing a scene from One Punch Man and it has Satsuma and Genos. Yeah, I have not read One Punch Man yet, so I'm not familiar with who those characters are. Let's see here. Bomac Draw says, do you print on a 11 by 17 board? Yes, I do. Let me see. I think I've got the boards right here. Yeah, I've been using a Strathmore 11 by 17 Bristol. These actually don't have the comic book boards printed on them. For a while, I was using ones that did have comic book boards printed. Let's see. Yeah, this is what I was looking for. So these two brands are the exact same. The only difference with this one is that this one has 11 by 17 crop marks and safe areas already printed on it. So I've been using these, but either way, I have my own template that I have set up, so I can print on the blank ones. It works fine. So let's see here. Amar says use an oversized printer, which, yes, I have a printer that can print up to 13 by 19, and my the comic boards are 11 by 17, so it easily will fit on that. Let's see here. Just roughing in the feathers here on the wings. So let's see here. Gaming Artist says, what other books have you done and published? Well, if you go to amazon.jeremy.net, you will see the other book that I've done. So I've published one other graphic novel, and then I have an art book that's available. The other graphic novel that I've published is a psychological thriller called Eye of the Gods, and it's about a man he's cursed with visions that he can't control. He can look through other people's eyes, he can see what they're seeing, but he can't control when or where. He witnesses a murder, only to find out it's being reported in the news as a death by natural causes. That was the first comic book that I published, and I did not do single issues for that. I wrote and drew the entire thing and published it as a graphic novel. And to be honest, that is my preferred method. I tend to think of my stories not as ongoing series, but as, well, graphic novels. I think of them as completed books. That's just, I tend to think of stories with the complete beginning, middle, and end. And then if I have more to say about those characters, then I will just do a sequel novel. And I have been batting around a sequel for Eye of the Gods as well, which is one of the books I'm strongly considering doing after I complete Morningstar. But as I said earlier, that book took me, I want to say, 5 years to complete. Little over 5 years to complete. And I thought, that's a really long time to not release anything after people have already seen my first book. And I really felt like I was very grateful for the people that bought my first book as an unknown comic book creator. I actually got the book into Diamond and got it into comic book shops, but I didn't sell a ton. I sold basically just enough for them to not cancel the order. But it did get into retail shops. That said, I realized it was just going to be a long time before I had another thing of that size done. So I thought maybe I better switch to just doing single issues for the next one. And, just get them out whenever I can. And I ended up making a collected trade of the first 4 issues. And that took me probably, instead of 5 years, maybe took me I want to say 3 to 4 years. So I am getting slightly faster, but I've also had other projects that keep creeping up that I want to do in addition. So it goes back and forth between me speeding up and slowing down. But yeah, that's the first book that I have. And then I also have an art book called Wound, which the cover of is one of my more popular art prints, a woman with a wind-up key in her back facing away from you. So you can find those on my Amazon page or on my regular website. Amar says, well, I guess we're back to talking about comic book pages and printing them out. And he said, I could do it when I had an oversized Epson printer, but I have not done them in ages. Since then I do everything digitally. I don't blame you. Like I said, I'm probably going to go digital on my next comic, but that is more about the ease of use on a tablet than it is about me not wanting to print out original pages, because I still really do like traditional inking, and I'm going to start doing more standalone illustrations that are traditional, just because it's taken me so long to learn to ink with a brush that I'm too stubborn to give it up now. But yeah, working digitally it's both a time saver in a lot of ways, and it's so much easier to edit and change things. I've been going through this page, and just the fact that I have a page that I mostly like, instead of having to draw and erase on the actual paper, that I can just, if I don't like something, turn off a layer, try a different version. Take a different version and just cut a character out of that part and then put in another part. I've just got 4 different versions of this panel that I've done up till now, and I could just cut out pieces and drop them in when I need to. So let's see here. So Joseph is asked, Gaming Artist says, who else in the chat is a traditional artist like myself? You guys are welcome to toss in your comments there. Joseph says, can you publish KDP and sell on both Amazon and Comixology? I'm not really familiar with all that. I am guessing that Yeah, Jesse does have an answer in there. He says, I think it's important that publishing all at once or in a series is less important if no one knows you. It's very important if you already have a business to maintain, in my humble opinion. In terms of the question of publishing on both, yes, you can publish on both Comixology and Amazon. Amazon owns Comixology. And first off, no matter what, Comixology is non-exclusive, as is Amazon. You can publish on these and on other platforms. You can publish on Amazon and Comixology and still put your book on Line Webtoons or some other webtoon webcomic aggregator, or just publishing it on your own website. It's not an exclusive in terms of you distributing your comics that way. It's not exclusive. It's just like another platform to put stuff out on. Amar says, I plan to give away the first 16 issues as a webcomic just to build an audience. It gains an audience, and I can do graphic novel versions for crowdfunding with custom covers and redrawing some of the comics. That sounds like a very thought out plan. You, sir, are looking into the future. I have been basically just trying to keep one step ahead of myself and just keep the work coming. But part of that, I think, is also the fact that, I've got a day job that's creative and is fulfilling. And because of that, I've been giving myself sort of the space to just... I think it's not that I've been giving myself the space to. What I'd rather say is I don't necessarily have the mental space to... The time it would take to do all of that planning. And I think some people's brains are better suited for it than others. For some people, it isn't really a big deal. It's just you sit down, scratch paper, or you make some notes, and you come up with a marketing plan and a distribution plan you put together. Some people just see the ABC of it. My brain just is, I think, much more attuned to the drawing part of the process. And for the planning part, it's like I really need to sit down and think, and I don't necessarily see the plans right ahead, and it ends up slowing me down from actually making the work. Again, I think that if I... And this is not something that's for everyone. That isn't true for everyone. For some people, I think you really can just sit down, come up with a marketing plan, make your comic, distribute it. That's I think that's actually the best thing. I just don't necessarily think that I'm mentally that good at it, but I don't necessarily want to partner with with a publisher, because for all of them, as much as I complain about me not necessarily being able to think through the whole process on my own, I have a certain level of distrust of other publishers when it comes to indie comics, when it's not even distrust. It's that in order for someone to publish another creator's comic, they have to have some sort of financial investment. They have to have some way to recoup their costs. And the margins for individual creators are so thin that if a publisher is going to make it worth their while, there isn't necessarily a whole lot left over of that pie for the creator. So it's not that I don't distrust a publisher, it's just that they've got to make it worth their while financially to publish it, or they aren't going to be able to continue to publish people's work. And in the end, the cut of that pie is so small that it's almost, I might as well just publish it myself, even if I'm marketing and distributing it poorly, rather than splitting that pie. And the hope is, as I hopefully continue to draw better over time, maybe I'll get better at the marketing and publishing side over time. We'll see. So a lot of comments in here, and we're almost getting, we're past the hour. So I'm going to slow down on the drawing here and focus on trying to catch up on all these chat comments before we wrap up. So so let me see. I left off at Joseph saying, I was thinking of just a single story graphic novel, dying to tell the story. I can draw. I don't really care if it makes any profit, but if it gets picked up, great. You know what? That is more of the approach that I have. That's what I'm doing. But I think I'm very open to comments from other people that are contrary to that, because what I'm doing is creatively fulfilling to me, but I don't know if it's the best way, because I really think that if I were smart, I would have a marketing plan in place for this. Now is not the greatest time to be developing a marketing plan, because the marketplace is shifting dramatically, and it's not like I am going to print right now or trying to make a profit from these books right now. So my focus is more on, let me just try and make the best comic I can while I'm trying to finish the series. But let's see here. In terms of comments, let's see. Amar says these first issues, he's talking about his 16 issues that he's doing, will be more of a skill building and workflow perfecting exercise. You can also do virtual conventions to build an audience. And I've noticed there's been a lot of virtual conventions, which are basically kind of like Zooms or webinars where you just invite a lot of different speakers to talk about panels the way they would at comic conventions and talk about their work. So that's something good to talk about. Joseph, a lot of these questions, Amar's got to put a lot more thought into the marketing side of this than I think I have. You should definitely click on his icon and go to his channel and subscribe, because he's doing a lot of his work in 3D, but he's sharing his work very similar to the way I am, where he's doing live streams and broadcasting his creative process. But Joseph asks him, how about self-publish through KDP and then promote through social networks, comic book forums? Let's see. Amar said, then you went to put on a... Oh, wait. This is first going back to you do virtual conventions. Then you put on the actual conference. We can have people prepay to guarantee money for the space. Gaming Artist says, I have to go now. Keep up the good work. See you next week. Thanks for stopping by. Good to see you too. Let's see. Amar says, yeah, I don't really care about money right now. For me, exposure and gaining interested viewers is my gauge of success. When I have people asking for printed version, I will head down that road, but that is far off. Right now, I want to get the 16 done and see if indie readers love it enough. I have tons of ideas. Even if it's not, I have tons of other. Even if it's not, I have tons of other stories to sell. Let's see. Amar says Amazon. That's all. Jesse says Zeus Toves in the chat. I just know Jesse, so I just say Jesse when I see his name. But that's Zeus Toves in the chat. And he says, I think publishing all at once or in a series is less important. Oh yeah, I already read that comment. Jesus, I'm so far behind on the chats. Sorry, guys. Amar says, I'm not even thinking about selling a book until the audience asks for it. I would just get it out and share it. We don't know what people like until they like it. Bombeck says, do you think you lose some of the energy when you work digitally? I don't think you lose some of the energy when you work digitally. I think that it feels different. And I think what may seem like a loss of energy when you first start is just interacting with the page differently. But the more I do it, the more I'm able to find that energy. And I think working digitally, this is what everyone who makes art has been saying for years. Digital is not better or worse than traditional. It's like there's painting in oil, there's painting in acrylic, there's painting in gouache, there's, inking versus doing your pencils and scanning those in directly. Digital is simply another tool. And much like any other tool, when you first start using it, it's going to feel awkward. It's not going to feel the same as you usually do. But I think what makes your personality, your unique creativity come through, what makes your artwork look different from someone else's, it will show up in the digital work as well. I think when you're learning actually how to draw, learning anatomy, proportion, composition, thumbnailing, and sketching, I think that a lot of those things are easier to learn traditional because you have a little bit more control and you can focus on the things you're actually trying to learn. When it comes to actually producing finished art, I certainly don't think that it's better or worse. I think that it is a personal choice. Like I said, I could just as easily finish this series digitally, but because I've been drawing the whole series traditionally, I'm going to do this last issue. I'm going to move this sleeve just because it's going to make a weird tangent right there. Yeah, let's do it like this. Always trying to find tangents. I'm sorry, I know I stopped in the middle of what I was ranting about, but I caught a tangent and I got to fix it. I'm always, the tangent police are always out in force, because if they're not, they will crop up all over your work. Yeah, digital is just another tool. And that's the thing. I don't believe that there should be a pro or an anti-digital thing. If you are curious about trying it, try it. If you've been using it and you like it, keep using it. If you try it and you don't like it, then stick with traditional. It really doesn't matter. It is such a personal choice. No one should tell you what you should or shouldn't do. So let's see here. Back to the chats. Amar says, if you put your book on your own website, it will be self-published, if that's what you're looking for. And Joseph says, it's good to know you're not obligated just to Amazon. So I think we've covered all that. Just because you're publishing on Comixology using Amazon Kindle Direct, it doesn't prevent you from selling it on your own website or any other platforms. If you're interested in hearing a lot more about self-publishing in general, there is a podcast I listen to called The Creative Pen. It's by a woman named Joanna Penn. She's with 2 N's. And so it's Creative Pen with 2 N's. She's a prose author. She writes thriller fiction. You know, it's not about comic books, but she goes very deeply into all the different ways to publish your book. She talks about publishing wide, which is publishing on multiple platforms as opposed to publishing just on Amazon. Amazon has a thing called Kindle Unlimited, where it's like your digital copies are only on Amazon, and that's just the one place where you sell them. And she definitely believes in publishing on multiple different digital distributors, multiple physical distributors, which you can also do. It's just an option that you click so that you're not exclusive. So you can find a lot more about various ways to sell your work online. So let's see here. Amar said to Gaming Artist 2, he's already gone from the chat, but if he hears the replay, this comment is also that I think everyone here that are doing comics are traditional artists, even if you've become popular by drawing digitally before digitally became popular. Also, digital tools mimic most traditional tools without the mess. Yeah, you're basically backing me up on what I was saying before. Joseph says, I cannot imagine myself drawing digitally, although I never tried. Amar says, traditional art is more for having hard copies of your work that you can sell later. I think that's a a nice way to... Jesse Zustova says, sorry it took a pandemic to get me to join your stream. Take it easy, everyone. Well, at least he's here now. That's what I was laughing at. In terms of the thing that Amar said, traditional art is more for having hard copies of your work to sell. You can sell later. That is true. I don't currently sell my comic book pages, my traditionally inked pages, but that's because right now, being a relatively unknown creator, there isn't a huge market for them. I've seen artists who work for Marvel and DC, and depending on the pages, you might be able to sell a cover for a well-known book or a well-known character for $200, $300, $500 or up if you're a premium artist. But for a lot of sequential pages, sometimes they're just going for like $100 a page, $50 a page for just some comic book pages. They're just blowing them out. And I feel like for as much blood, sweat, and tears as I put into each of these pages, I don't want to sell them for just $100. So I'm just going to hold on to them, and maybe they'll be valuable someday if my work develops an audience, but I don't want to sell them for that little. If I'm only going to get $100, I'd rather just do a commission or do a standalone, just an ink drawing, not necessarily a comic book page, which is also another reason why I'm probably going to switch to digital in the future, is because that way I can get all the benefits in terms of editing and manipulating it and working faster. If I'm not going to be selling those traditional pages anyway, then at least I can get more work out. That said, I do love I love the feel of the real ink and the traditional inking. So we're just about caught up here. Amar says content creation and audience building is most important, especially as a new artist. He says later to Zeus Toves. Says that sounds like a great idea for a video, finding tangents and correcting them. You know what? Maybe I will. I'll try to remember to do that. Maybe that can be one that I can have you on the stream with me at some point. We'll do that. But I'll make it a note and write that down. In terms of the podcast, her name is Joanna Penn, Penn. But actually, you know what? The show is just called here. I am going to just scribble on my comic book page. Let me toss in another layer and hide that. And it's the creative pen.com. It's a horrible M. Yeah, that's how OCD I am. I draw a bad M. I'm like, I gotta fix that. I mean, all of this is pretty sloppy. That's another good thing. Learning one of the things my friend Gregor Toomey, a fellow artist, cartoonist, creator, does a whole lot of things. Kind of a polymath. But one of the things he taught me when I was trying to get better at inking is to write with my brush. Because writing words, I have tons of notes on my thumbnails that I draw in with a brush. And I have tons of notes that are also written in brush instead of pen because it helped me learn control. And I have found that writing with a digital tool also helps. It would help if I could spell. Helps with developing control. A lot of people that write, their handwriting is illegible. And it's really hard to just if they're writing with a pencil and a pen, you can't read it. But learning to write clearly with a digital tool, believe it or not, will help you make better digital marks. The same way it will help you improve your inking. It's kind of crazy, but something else to consider trying. All right, so we're wrapping up here. Amar says, my last comment before you end your stream, another option for exposure as an artist is to do an old school radio reads and then make them into podcasts. That is great too. Ed Piskor from Comic Kayfabe. First off, you guys are Cartoonist Kayfabe. If you guys aren't watching that channel, that's like a full-on art school. Those guys go deep dives into tons of classic comics and comic creators. This is all about me giving shout-outs for other people instead of me. But I know that Ed Piskor, the guy who did Hip Hop Family Tree and X-Men Grand Design, he's been doing a new series, and when he puts pages on there, he does a reading of the characters, and he has his comic pages up as a slideshow, which I think is a really cool way to do it. I've tried doing that for some of my work in the past, and it's not that I am against doing that now. I tried it. I thought it was fun, but I'm like, let me just get back to finishing making the damn comics. But anyway, let's see here. But yes, I agree. Doing a podcast of your work to get it out there, using your comic book pages as a slideshow. And Amar found the podcast. Spectrum Man Live says, speaking of brushes, it's been a while since I've been able to watch you. Have you upgraded your inking brushes yet? Nope, I am still using cheap old, I don't want to call them crappy brushes, but I've been using inexpensive brushes and then just using them more disposably. So instead of having like a nice Raphael Sable that I take a lot of care of, I've been using synthetic brushes from Dick Blick. And I usually just use a 00, a number 2 brush, and a number 4 brush. And I just use them. Usually they last about 10 pages before they start to fray. So, I mean, if I'm really taking care of it and rinsing it regularly, they'll maybe last a whole issue. But generally, I'll just use a brush for an issue and then toss it away. Or I keep them for doing weird, crappy brush effects. So I've not stepped up or revised my inking setup yet. And if I'm going to start inking digitally, then who knows? That may end up being a moot point. All right, guys, it's been a nice long live stream, incredibly lively chat. I really enjoyed talking with you guys, engaging with you guys, hanging out, having these conversations. If you want to have bonus live streams throughout the month, I do at least one bonus video per month, and I've been trying to see if I can work in doing 2 a month, but some extra ones. But on my Patreon, if you subscribe to my Patreon channel at patreon.com/GERIMI, that will help support this YouTube video and keep these videos free for all of you guys. So if you're really enjoying what I'm producing and you want to actually see more of my comic book art and comic pages before anyone else does, then head on over to patreon.com and sign up there. And again, if you also don't have time to keep up with everything that I'm doing, but you still want to see what else is going on, you can sign up for my newsletter. I send out a monthly newsletter once a month. That's newsletter.jeremy.net. And the aforementioned Amazon author page to pick up my books in physical copies or on in Kindle. You can go to amazon.jeremy.net. Thank you so much. That's it for now. Go be creative.